Hi everyone, it's Kasia from Tarot Map, and this is another episode in the Inspired Tarot Map series. And this time I'm hosting Marie White from the amazing, the creatrix of the amazing Mary L. Tarot. Hello, Marie.
Hi, thank you
So
for
nice.
having me here.
Yes, so nice to have you. I was a bit afraid that you will think I'm a stalker when I'm like,
Nope.
Marie, please, please.
I'm so busy and scattered. Sometimes that's what it takes. I have a hard time focusing and
Yeah, no, it was great. I was just hoping, because sometimes when you're too persistent, you can also go like, Jesus, what is
yeah,
this
no,
girl
not,
about?
not at all, not at all.
Cool. As I mentioned before, we went online, and recorded. I told you that I'm also this part of the group that is doing tarot, like a card of a day with Mary L. Tarot now. So I will have some questions from the people from the group, and you were kind enough to agree to answer them, which is lovely. So I think everybody from the group at least will be very happy to see and hear the question answered. And other than that, I always start these interviews with just ancestral question, because
Okay.
no man is an island. So what's your ancestry line? Where are you from, Marie, and what are your ancestors?
I am part German and Italian. That's like the two big ones, and then a little bit of like Scandinavian and like a teeny little bit of African, and like Northern and Sub-Saharan African. So that's it.
Yeah.
Mostly, yeah, German and Italian.
And because you were born in America, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and you live in America now as well.
Mm-hmm.
And do you feel like, because it's always interesting with the new continents like this in Australia or
Right.
America. I used to live in Australia, and I heard it often from my friends, like how, like, they kind of Australian, but because they usually like incomers onto the land, like in America, people sometimes have this strange connection to the land they live on. Do you feel American as well? Like, would you?
I really do. I actually I'm in North Carolina right now, but I was born on the other coast in California, and I really miss it. I felt connected to the land there, the animals and everything. And since I've been here, I don't have that like at all.
Mm.
Yeah, it's just not there. So yeah, I definitely can see that. I really feel like I was part of that. So yeah, and I don't have like a huge. I studied German, and I like a lot of. I like to study stuff from all over the world, but yeah, I really feel connected to the land over there. So
Yeah, that's cool. So let's go on to the
okay,
tarot, because that's our favorite subject here. And at the same time, like, if somebody doesn't know, this is we're talking about the Mary L. Tarot, which Marie created. And from what I read, it took you over a decade to
mm-hmm.
make this deck happen. So could you maybe tell everybody like what prompted you in the first place to make a tarot deck?
When I first started, I'd been working with tarot since I was like 17 when I got my first deck. But then when I had my first baby, I had a lot of downtime where you're sitting and holding the baby and nursing and all that. And I know you were going to ask about that. And
Yeah.
I'm really fidgety and I just get bored easily. So I'm like, I'm going to take this time and I'm going to like work on a tarot deck. And it wasn't like a big, huge thing at the time. It was just like something to, keep me busy. But then it grew into something that was really big. So that's what got me started.
Yeah, and then once you started, you kind of kept going. It was
Yeah.
probably a big process, because I can imagine how hard it is to actually finish even any tarot deck, but yours one is packed with, so many layers, and the artwork is very rich, I would say, symbolically rich. So I just show a few images for people who might not know how your deck looks, so they get a little chance to see. Oh, I just picked the sevens because then the question about the sevens will come, but it doesn't really matter because you can see the style of the deck. and it's a like amazing artwork. And I think I'm not wrong to say that it's in some way in tarot community it has become like a cult deck a little bit. So how did your relationship to your tarot deck change? Has it changed? Because you have made it. When did you finish? What year was it? Now we have second edition.
When it was finished, I think I finished it in like 2009. It's been like 10 years. So, I mean, for me, it's like, it's continuous. It hasn't stopped. I mean, I published at this point, but I'm still working with it every day. The cards were done, but yeah, I work with it every day. I do. I mean, sometimes I get busy and I can't, but I write, I keep like all these folders full of all my writings about it. And yeah, it's continual. And
does it get like deep, like not deeper because it's deep enough, but do you over time like add stuff to the cards, or you know how sometimes over years you kind of change your idea about Six of Wands, let's say, or whatever?
That I do, and I continually learn from it still. Plus, just the concepts that it's like it holds a lot of concepts, you know. And so I study all the stuff, but that's like the framework that I use to study all the different stuff. So
yeah. Because you put like Marseille, from what you wrote, Marseille, Thoth, and Rider-Waite-Smith, like you mix the three systems. Somebody asked.
I didn't, and a lot of people read it like that. And I probably wrote it badly to make it sound like that, but I wanted it to be like just the living iconography that came from those important decks. So I wasn't trying to mix those decks.
Okay.
It was.
Yeah, you wrote the Mary L. Tarot is built on the three pillars of the Marseille, Rider-Waite, and Thoth decks in deep respect of their wisdom. Actually, you didn't write that you mix the systems.
Yeah,
it just may be easy to
have interpreted it like that. So,
oh, that's interesting.
Good, a small distinction, but yeah, no, I never intentionally tried to like mix those systems or replicate them in any way. My whole thing was always to explore the concepts by themselves. Like, for example, like death. I wasn't trying to do a Rider-Waite death or a Marseille death. I was trying to illustrate death, you know, the concept of death. So I did that with all of them, and that's why it looks kind of, you know, non-traditional. But the concepts are very traditional. I probably the closest it would be to is the Marseille, really, because I tried to go back to the old, you know,
the basics.
Yeah, the basics.
And also I think it's just they such universal, rich human archetype. Like you don't really need many systems. Yeah, yeah.
I was looking for the archetype, not the you know,
system that portrayed it already. Yeah, because that's interesting because in the second edition, which came out right now, like 2 weeks ago or a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago, I don't know exactly, but like right now, you have changed a few cards. And there was this one quite controversial card from the first edition, the Hierophant. And if anybody hasn't seen it, that's the Hierophant from the first edition. Could you just maybe briefly just say, like, why did you portray the Hierophant? Because it's so unusual in a way. You haven't seen it anywhere, definitely not in any other deck. How did you, like, what prompted you?
I wanted to make her female. There was a balance I wanted to have in the first 6 cards. So I think, I don't know, that's just came out of me at the time to do it like that. I had some dreams that led up to it. And yeah, I just really wanted to portray, you know, tradition and religion and all that stuff, and it came out like that. But I know a lot of people have taken it negatively. I don't really see it that negatively myself, but I can see where other people do.
This is like one of my favorite cards from the deck. I really love this one. So
I always liked it a lot too.
But a lot of people think it's kind of scary, or that
yes.
this is like masculinity sucking on the feminine aspect. I don't know if you've met this opinion.
No, I've never heard that.
There was a question about that breastfeeding also, if it had anything, like, because maybe you were breastfeeding, in the group, we were wondering like if there was anything from your personal experience that you felt like this kind of passing on knowledge somehow as well through food.
And I think I was breastfeeding, so I think a lot of the symbolism I used at the time kind of circled around that kind of a thing, having babies and breastfeeding and stuff like that. So yes, definitely. But I was seeing it like the church passing down knowledge, from its own body. If you imagine her as a church and not, as a person, she's a symbol for the church, passing it on for good or bad. I mean, I didn't want it to be all good either. So I kind of saw it as also passing on corruption and things that are obsolete now that keep going forward. And I guess that's why the babies look kind of monstrous, because they're supposed to be kind of corrupt and obsolete.
Yeah, I think that's probably what makes the image a little bit off, because otherwise if she was just breastfeeding would be fine, but the babies seem like they're not quite right.
I do think it's kind of negative. I mean, it is. So I really wanted to, in the next one, I wanted to find that balance. I mean, I guess I had to get over my own negative feelings towards just big organized things that take on a life of their own and won't change and hurt people and stuff like that. So it's a part of it though. So.
And the new version, I don't have the new deck, so I can't show the new version. If you have it, maybe.
I do. I don't think I have it right in front of me. I forgot to grab the new one. Hold on 1 second.
Yeah. The question was also if the relationship, because you changed it, was it just because you've you just kind of got so much negativity around this image and misunderstanding that you wanted to change it, or has your personal relationship changed with the image that you've changed it? Like, why is the new Hierophant in the new deck?
It's more because I wanted to make it better, and I wanted it to be more balanced. So this is, I don't even know if you can see that. Let's see.
Yeah.
So it's more neutral, and I would replace the symbolism's kind of the same, but it's got different things. So the babies are now like these snakes winding up. Those are the two things. They're now the positive and negative winding up, and then they turn into the golden wings at the top. So she's basically a caduceus.
Yeah.
So, I mean, same kind of stuff, but hopefully more balanced than the other one was.
Behind it, it's like a windows or? Windows, yeah.
Windows.
Like the church windows. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and I wanted to ask about the high priestess also, because that's the old high priestess.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very unusual. I remember first time I saw it and I'm like, what is it? I had to stare at it to find that she has actually like no face, that void in the face. Because I thought like when I stared at it long, I thought this was her face. And then I was like, no, this is not her face. So, do you have the new high priestess to show?
I'm looking for it right now. Yeah, that one, I'm actually surprised. I'm getting a lot of people saying, oh, I love the old one. Why did you do away with it? And I really had no idea that anybody even liked it. Nobody's ever said anything to me one way or the other about the high priestess. So I had no idea, but I thought it was that was one of the first cards I did. And I really just felt like it was intuitive, but it wasn't really, it just didn't have the stuff in it that I thought the high priestess should. Now I know the new high priestess, where did she go? Is more.
She's hiding as high priestess does.
Right, she is. She's hiding. This one's more traditional, but
Because this one was surprising because she seemed like pregnant. I don't know if you meant to make her pregnant or not, but yeah.
I wanted her to be like pregnant with possibilities. You know, she's the void that, you know, is carrying everything. So, and I was really deep into studying Kabbalah when I did that. Also, when I did these first couple cards. So very much a Bina, Sephiroth. That's a tree of life on her stomach. Oh, here she is.
Okay, so we have the more traditional, the pillars, and
right.
She's still the void, which
still
I love.
The void. And so this is like the inside, looking inside, where the other one just showed the outside. So this is inside the temple. And well, I mean, the other one is too, you can look at it like that, but this is inside the temple, and inside is the fire of life, which is also the sun, you know, rising or setting on the horizon. What's the horizon? The horizon between here and there, and black and white, and all of that. So fertility, the womb, the water. So there was a lot of symbols in here. I mean, what happened is, as I would read the cards or talk about them with anybody or anything, I'd find myself always saying, well, in traditional decks, you would find blah, 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 blah symbols. And that's the same thing with the Three of Swords, which I also redid. In traditional tarot, you'll find a heart, which means blah, blah, blah. But in my tarot, you know, it means this. So to me, it became clear after a while that, you know, it's like, gosh, I really wish I had painted them like that so they matched the mental image I have, you know, what I think of that embodies that card. So, and the reason I did that, the Three of Swords with the bird, is I was trying to match it to, it was swords. So I did a lot of birds, feathers, things like that. So,
but I think, you know, it's interesting because when I look at the image, it totally depicts the kind of pierced innocence in some way, or the pierced, you know, when there's just something that it's destroyed somehow by thinking, or maybe by how we perceive things.
Right.
So the heart or the bird could be like this innocence, because sometimes the heart is also confusing or quite limiting when you think of Three of Swords, because when you go to traditional Marseille tarot, you just have three swords. You can be, you know, the third sword can be a liberator of the stalemate of the two swords when you like cross over, you know, so you don't necessarily, and I think people often go for this heartbreak, but I quite really love this. I mean, I love the new heart as well, because I'm like all about roses now. Yes. It's beautiful. I actually really love this image. It's gorgeous. But I also loved a lot that one as well, which, I think, you know, sometimes when people change the cards for the another editions, like sometimes you like have mixed feelings. I actually love the new versions you did. I think I do prefer the old Hierophant just because it was one of my favorite cards in general. So I never had any issue with it, or it wasn't scary. It was just like the right thing for me to, you know, represent the Hierophant. It was kind of cool. But so the reasoning behind it was just you wanted to, like you felt like you want to improve the image, let's say, of Hierophant, make it more balanced. And the question that I got from Asha was about Odin, that she, you know, when she was going through the cards and book, that you refer to Odin quite often. So she asked if you personally work with Odin in any no way. Is it somebody who, you know, a deity that you kind of feel special connection to?
I love Norse mythology. I love it. And I've studied, I've studied like every religion and belief system I can get my hands on for like the last 30 years. I love it. But when I got to that, it's like, wow, it's just so rich and descriptive and archetypally, just, you know, it's just full of it. It's just so good. And I just love it. And at the time, that was probably like at the peak of it when I named my daughter Freya. My daughter's name is Freya. Luckily for my other two, they were born before that period, or there might be a Loki and a Hela. Escape that. Anyway, so I love it. But right now, I've gotten to this point where I feel like, as far as working with like Odin or like any pantheon or anything like that, I just feel like everything's man-made. I'm just like a lone wolf kind of thing. I'm just not, I feel like any kind of religion or belief system or anything is just like, just really limiting. You know, there's so much out there, and it's all just man-made. It's like all cultural representations of this ultimate truth. What I'm interested in is the ultimate truth, but I really dig Norse mythology.
Yeah, because I think you're right. And some of the systems might help us to maybe access the ultimate truth, but there's always this
definitely.
danger of limiting us as well when you don't see beyond that it's a system still, and it just helped you. Like it can be a point, like way pointer, but it doesn't really. Yeah.
And right now too, I feel like I feel like I'm kind of done studying like old stuff, because those are not my cultures. I wasn't there. I mean, like say Egyptians, that was really my first love, was Egyptian stuff. And I wasn't there. I may not, I'm not Egyptian. I wasn't there. I wasn't part of the culture. I don't know what they did, you know, on day to day. I don't even know what my neighbor does, much less what people did, you know, thousands of years ago. So I love the art, but I really want something that's more, you know, here and now and my life. And same with art. I feel the same way with art. I'm like done doing like anything to do with stuff from years gone by. I just want to do like here and what's relevant right now. And the same with my beliefs. So the closest I can think of is like some of the Western traditions, you know, even like, well, I don't know. There really isn't a whole lot, but I consider myself, if I had to say anything, as an alchemist. So I'm all alone. I'm an alchemist because I'm trying to turn souls from base metal into gold. So, and that's what you'll see, and that's what's in that Hierophant too.
Yeah, that's so interesting what you just said, because I was actually thinking about it myself for over the last few months. That I was so into, you know, I'm a Sagittarius, like with Neptune in Sag and my Sun, like eclectic, all the cultures are my culture, and I love other cultures. And I feel the same kind of pull back to, and we talked about a lot, you know, cultural appropriation and all of this stuff, which like, you know, brings consciousness also to like overuse and kind of like healthy boundaries, maybe in some way, or respectful boundaries. And I'm not the one to just go, oh, this one culture and you can't use anything from that culture. Like people, who knows if there were past lives, which also we don't know what's happening. But if there are past lives, you probably might have been in any culture available on earth by now. And if we go back by mother, through your mother, through her mother, through the mother, you back at the big mother, and we all brothers and sisters in the end. So you know, it's just, I'm not for the harsh rules here. You can't do this or you can't use that. But I also feel this huge pull of like, and kind of like this BS that comes with a lot of this as well.
Yeah.
You just go like, oh, fuck's sake. I'm just like, ugh. And again, back to kind of, now I'm like really passionate about my culture, Western Hermeticism, like Hermetism and all of this alchemical stuff, Greek culture, all the Slavic stuff, which we don't have so much left, but really, you know, whatever you have, like I'm really passionate about it now, which is funny that you just mentioned. But yeah, it's interesting. I think the whole consciousness also changes around it, because we passed maybe this time when you were like, I want to study everything, every possible, you know, and now you kind of, while you did it, you passed this point.
And you know, it's just me too. I wouldn't expect anybody else to think like that. I mean, I think it's all just, I love it all. I think it's just so great. And I love art from all over the world. It's great. But when I think about what am I going to do in my life that's worth, I don't want to say worthwhile, but what is my contribution? My contribution is not going to be in reproducing Egyptian art, for example. My contribution is going to be recording what's going on today, you know, in a life of someone living in this place in this time. So that's, and exploring that ultimate truth. And hopefully I've gotten some language from all the other things I've studied and seen their points of view and learned from them. And now I'm ready to, you know, I look at the thing
Yeah, and I do it my way.
Yes.
And I have to ask, like when Asha asked about Odin, like, did you have a special relationship to Mary, Mother Mary, or just did you? Because it's somehow like she also appears quite like, you know,
Yeah.
veiled in many cards. Have you ever like worked
I
with
wouldn't
her?
say,
Or?
yeah, I wouldn't say a special relationship. Just I like the symbology a lot.
Yeah, yeah. Cool. I had to ask because I'm on the
Yeah.
Mary trip now.
Are
Kind of
you?
took
Yeah.
me by surprise. Yeah, rediscovering my femininity, but somehow through her archetype. And to me, she's just like, you know, a lineage of all the goddesses that
Yeah.
were, and she's just the only surviving in this patriarchal world. At least when, you know, I'm in Poland, so I'm surrounded by the Hierophant
Oh yeah.
on always. So it's interesting to see, you know, and like cut her off that religion a little bit and just see
Mhm.
her more of a surviving goddess in, like, you know, in the simple terms, like layman terms, but it's a big symbology behind it too. So the next question is about the journey with sevens. So you wrote, and I was also remember going like, oh, that's interesting. When I was reading about Chariot, she wrote that the seven is like one of the key arcana in the whole, to understand the whole structure of tarot. And somebody also wrote about Seven of Wands, which is this card. And she asked that this is the number to pay closer attention to, as it designates our spirit-led drive to grow independent of our biological programming. And she asked about how you can maybe just tell us a little bit more about your take on the sevens and why seven is so important in your understanding of tarot.
Yeah, the seven, I think it's the Chariot. So to me, yeah, that is really central, both to me, my own, you know, personal beliefs, and to tarot. I think it really is. I think the whole structure of the tarot is based on, it's either based on sevens or it's happened to coalesce on the sevens. Whether it was intentional or not, I don't know. But yeah, and the Chariot, I do a lot of reading of Plato's philosophy, and so there's the Phaedrus theory of the Chariot is, you know, a human soul being, you have the black and the white horse, and you have to balance them to reach your human potential. If you have one horse that dominates or the other that dominates, you're going to crash, and you're going to crash anyway. But the way to get where you're going is to balance these two horses and get there. And you can look at them as the soul, or, you know, anything, any kind of duality, and duality, you know, yin and yang shows up everywhere and in everything. So yeah, I think it's really important.
And this is depiction, like, see, for you, this is, you depicted Odin, but like when I looked at it, I'm like, oh, this is Mary, you know, because in Poland we have this goddess, Slavic goddess, she's called Dziewanna. And funny enough, they celebrate her on the 2nd of February, like Bridget and like Mother Mary with the candle thingy. And Mother Mary in Poland, I'm pretty sure, was taken the image. Often they show Mother Mary in her blue dress surrounded by wolves,
Wow.
and that's the Dziewanna Slavic goddess, you know. So when I saw this, and I'm like, oh my god, there's this rose, or like the lotus, and there's this, you know, the aura and the wolves, this is Mary. But then I read, I'm like, oh no, it's Odin.
I'm going to be looking that up after this for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely.
And I loved how you kind of were inspired by Odin, but this is definitely a female. So
right. And I did that because I wanted, you know, because I'm a female, and this is about, you know, controlling yourself. And I wonder, like, I often wonder, all these stories and mythologies and stuff, you know, is it just because they're written by men? I mean, what is the female perspective? I don't know if the female archetype gets shifted, because, you know, I really don't know. But yeah, I just wanted to represent it from my point of view, which was as a female.
yeah,
So.
interesting. When I read, you know, you probably read Maria Gimbutas and all of this old European goddess culture, when they were doing a lot of excavations and there were no like weapon let's say, in the graves. So they kind of suspect, nobody knows for sure, obviously, that there was some form of peaceful culture, goddess like matriarchal ruled culture. So I was also wondering if that, you know, we don't really hear much about it anymore, because then the hair story was his story, and all the gods suddenly became males. And even say certain goddesses from the Greek culture, I read that even, you know, the Athena or Aphrodite, they had to be born of guys as well. She jumped out of Zeus's head, and he had to ejaculate for Aphrodite to get born. You know, I was like, okay, maybe. And I read somewhere that it also might have had to do with this huge take by patriarchy, and that was even in the depiction of the goddesses.
Another thing that I used a lot in the deck is that female would represent internal, where male would represent external. So any card where I wanted to represent an internal process, you know, I would use female instead. So this is an internal control of yourself and your own soul and your own actions and everything, rather than trying to control the world or anything outside you. So
and can I ask you about this too, because they kind of, you know, very untypical. So did you go here to evoke emotion, or like, is it the white, are they, you know, because they do sevens, so are they kind of, were they connected?
Yeah,
or
so the black and the white horse of the chariot.
Okay. Yeah.
So
cool.
So the white one is spiritedness. It's supposed to be like heroism and bravery, and you know, that thing you have inside you that makes you want to do good and be a hero. And the black one is the energy and your lusts and passions and all that. And so you got to, you know, control them. And then the Seven of Swords is where you get those two together. And then actually the whole sevens, the whole chariot I see as a process of finding free will, learning that you have the ability to control these things, that you have a responsibility for your life and everything that happens in it. And getting free will is what I see as the Seven of Swords. You got those two things, the black and the white. You realize, you know, hey, you know, this doesn't just happen to me. I make this happen. And then the Seven of Discs is I see all of them as a progression of, you know, the spark of something with wands over to the full manifestation of it in discs with earth. You know, it's totally, you know, created then. And so the Seven of Discs is now you've got this chariot rolling, and you're in control of your life, and you know, he's taking his steps on the earth as this, you know, powerful being in control of himself. So
that's so wonderful.
Sevens, yeah.
Actually, what you said about this finding the free will, this is to me what tarot does in general. This is like, if I was to,
it's so central.
Totally. If I was to choose, like, this is what tarot, like, that's why I want to use tarot, to like practice and to empower my free will, and just like empower those choices. That's why I find it quite interesting how tarot got also this shadows. It has this shadow side of how many people get, you know, like hooked on actually disempowering themselves with the help of the cards by their own choice, of course. But then it gets blamed on the 78 pieces of cardboard, really.
I know. I've had a few times in the past where I was like really upset about something. I'll do like 20 readings on it. I can see it. You're like,
go.
Yeah, come on, tell me something different here. You're like, no, you didn't mean that. Let me do it again.
We all know that. Yeah. But so there is one more question about Six of Discs, and I actually it's a very unusual take on the Six of Discs, because usually from traditional tarot we think of Six of Discs as like this exchange, giving, receiving. Can you just tell us a little bit more about, I know you can read in the book, but sometimes I read in the book and I'm thinking, how do you go with the Six of Discs?
I don't remember what I put in the book. Now, I don't remember what I put in there. What I did in that first book was I had such limited space. I had like 40,000 words. I had written like 200,000 words, and I had to consolidate it down to 40,000 words. And so I basically just tried to focus on what was the symbolic, what was the origin of the symbols in it. And I didn't really space to go into much else. So yeah, I don't think I really got to some of the nitty gritty on that.
Yeah, that must be really hard for an author, because I've got a few friends who wrote books, and when
and
they had to edit and like chop and cut, and
I'm not a writer. I mean, I'm visual. I'm very visual, but I have a hard time putting things into words. So I write a lot, but
because this person
much to
wrote,
get across.
this cat throws her off every time it shows up in the reading, and she doesn't know what to think about it. So how did you?
What I would say about that card is that the 6 of discs is just like the 7 of discs is the completion of the Chariot. The 6 of discs is the completion of the Lovers. So it's the last, you know, manifestation of the Lovers. So in there you'll see like the two things all coming together. So there's the 2 trees in the Garden of Eden. She's the woman and the serpent together. She has some of the symbols of Mary on there, the lilies, and then the lamp is the fire. So anyway, it was the 2 things coming together and becoming like one being from the Lovers. Mundanely, when I get that card in a reading, the way I read it is I look at that oil lamp she has, and I think of like the way I see it is it's the lovers that have merged and become one, and so they've created something new. It's like a pass me not, or a, you know, ring pass not, where there's a barrier that you can't get past, and then once you do, you can't really go back. You can't unsee or unknow what's happened. And just like this oil lamp, once you let the genie out, you can't get it back in. So it's a you know, letting the cat out of the bag or opening Pandora's box kind of thing. That's how I read that when it comes up. But also, when I was doing that, I was thinking of Tipper, the center Sephiroth in the Tree of Life. It's perfection, beauty. It's like the center of everything. And so that's really what I had in mind when I painted that.
They're coming together, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Marriage, unity, that kind of thing.
I love how you always, I think this is also like interesting with you, that you always go back with the minors to the majors. So all the 7s will have connection to the Chariot, all the 6s will have connections to the Lovers.
Yeah, when I did them, I was just thinking about this earlier, because what do you do for the minor arcana, especially if you're not just going to like copy the Rider-Waite or the Thoth? What do you do for the minor arcana? Where did these symbols come from? I mean, with the Crowley deck, they used the elements and the numbers, which is good. And then what I understood at the time about the Rider-Waite was that Waite wasn't really all that interested in the minor arcana and told Pamela just to do whatever. And so she just did whatever. That's all I'd ever heard about it. Now knowing what I know, I think she was really well acquainted with the Solabusca tarot. Yeah. And there's clearly some of the stuff she was influenced on there. So there was a reason to it. But when I was doing them, I couldn't see what the reason was for a lot of that stuff. So I had gone up to like the 5s. I had done the aces, 2, 3, 4, 5s, thinking what the heck. And then on the 5s, it's like, I'm just going to intentionally, design these. I'm going to think, and then it just all blew up, and it's like, this is just not working. And I had this realization, that if you look at just what's in the tarot and don't like attach all this other stuff or tradition or anything else, just look at the word and the number, because that's all that we have that goes all the way back to the start, the word and the number. And I realized the numerology is already built in, that the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, it's the magician and the high priestess and the empress and the emperor. And you could the minor arcana is the same. The 1s are all 1s. They're all magicians. The 2s are all high priestess. And so all of a sudden it's like, wow. And I threw away most of those first cards I did and started over, and it made so much more sense. And now it just makes total sense to me. I think like that. Just how
and it's a great way also for somebody who learns tarot, because it's always easier to kind of get a handle of the major arcana.
Learn the major arcana. I mean, I think about it like that's the spiritual counterpart, or it's the archetypes. It's it's like the singularity of the idea, and then the minor arcana is how it plays out in the world, and it's broken into 4 elements. So, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, how do you, deal with that idea?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it makes a lot of sense to me.
yeah, and it's really cool. I like it too. You said already that you are working with your own deck, but do you use any other tarot decks, or mostly do you use your own?
I'll use some other ones just for study purposes, and once in a while I will. My daughter, actually both my daughters like tarot too, and my youngest one, 13, she's just been really getting into it, and so she'll have me like she likes to play with my different decks and mess with them, and so like in that case I will, but for serious stuff I pretty much just use mine now. Ever since I added that last card to it and did a spread, that was it. It was like,
Yeah, I can just imagine. Oh my god, that's so funny. Like, I'm a daughter of Mary White and I like tarot. My mom has many tarot decks. Oh, she even made one. That's funny. Awesome. And are you planning to ever create another tarot deck or
Nope.
oracle deck maybe?
As far as doing a whole one like I already did, no, I don't think I have it. I don't think I have it in me to do it.
This one is pretty extensive on so many levels.
Yeah.
What about the book? Like you said that you had to cut out a lot. Is the second edition book bigger, or is it the same as the first one?
Well, like I said, I've been writing stuff down since when I wrote that book, the first book, I hadn't used it as a whole deck because it had only been, I just finished the deck and then I wrote the book. So I didn't have a lot of time to actually work with the deck. Now I've had, a decade working with the deck. So I have a lot of other ideas of how it actually works together and works in readings and stuff. And I've been recording everything, and one day I hope to put it together and put it out as a book.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
If somebody's
I think
interested in.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it would be awesome because, as you said, like it's also your own experience with the deck, which is at like this valuable level. I think, like practical level, which is also awesome because sometimes I feel that people might be scared. Like I've heard a lot of like opinions. I'm like scared to use Mary L, or I don't know how to read it because like nothing resembles the tarot, and especially when you don't know tarot well. It might be quite hard. Like it's not maybe a beginner's deck unless you open enough to just read intuitively and don't get too hanged up on the readings, or if you know numerology and stuff. But it's interesting that if you could like add even the more practical level to the book as well.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I think everybody would be going, yeah, Mary, at least if you don't want to do any other decks, write us a book. And there was a question about dreaming as part of the creative process. And somebody asked, like, if you experience dreams with all these, like, religious and cultural symbols.
Definitely.
And did they make their way into the tarot deck as well? Like,
yeah, definitely. There was a couple of, because what I used to do is I would start researching, and then I would just like sit on it for like months and just contemplate it and think about it and draw it and do this and that. And I would start dreaming it too. And often I think my subconscious was just, working on it. And then it would I would have dreams that would be like the answers. Yeah. So with the Fool, I'd actually repainted it several times and just couldn't get it right. And I was starting to get really frustrated. And then I had a dream where I just saw these slippers coming, like not like jumping off the cliff, but coming, towards you. And I could see them coming off the mountain. And that ended up being how I drew it. The perspective is how I drew it. And then the Hierophant, I had a great dream with that, where I was out in the desert and I went to this really old city, and it had 3 iron gates I had to go through. And then I came to this huge old building, and I went inside and I went to this antechamber, and then I found these 4 cards that were on the wall, and they had the 4-letter name of God on them. And so I ended up building, actually you asked how I was inspired to do that card. That was what inspired the image on that. It was in the stained glass. I had the Yod Hey Vav Hey in the mirror. I don't know if you could see the whole thing.
I think you can, there is some, I don't know if you can see the whole, but there's definitely,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
There's some, but I don't think we can.
So it's in the new one too. And I think because I see that as relating to so many things with tarot, with the, the 4 elements and the suits and everything. So yeah, that was the big inspiration on that one. What was another big one? I know there was another one, but yeah, I definitely did that a lot when I went through them. And another reason I wouldn't want to do it again is because I got to where I experienced like everything in all the cards. It would happen to the stuff would happen to me, and then I'd have to, deal with it and then learn from it. And it's like, it's great, but it's not so, sometimes it's not so great. And there was like the tower, I was scared when I got to that. I'm like, oh my God. And that was the one card that I did no preparation for. It was all a prima. I did it. I just sat down and did it because I just wanted to get through it.
Very tower too.
Yes.
Unexpected. I'm just doing it. I'm not preparing for that shit.
Yes. So, because I was scared. But it's pretty rough. And I've always said, and I say to myself all the time, it's like, okay, I said I wanted to do this and I'm willing to do it. But as soon as it like hurts my family or anything like that, then, just no, that's not.
But it's interesting because many creators who do tarot have similar experience that once you start working with the archetype, it kind of manifests in your life.
Right.
I wanted to show you something, sorry, for the view now. But I wanted to show you this. There's this, I had this interview with the Story Medicine Tarot, Jessica, and what she did, because she said exactly the same, but what she did, she actually posed for every of the images, and her partner painted her posing for each of the images. And she said also that she, through posing, through really embodying each of the image, that she experienced each of the archetypes. And obviously not this, she didn't change into the egg, but whenever there were females,
I totally get that.
Yeah, that she actually really like got into the embodied version of tarot. And in some way, I think when you paint, you do the same. You live.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I don't know where everything comes from. I mean, who knows? I can have a lot of theories and I have a lot of ideas, but I don't really know where it's coming from. But I suspect that, your subconscious really has a lot of power over your life and what goes on. And plus, I tend to think, our skin isn't the end of ourselves. I really do think we're, just connected. We're just connected. We just flow in and out of everything. So what is us is actually a lot bigger than what's in our body. So when we're asking, what does this mean? Everything comes back and tells you what it means. It's a conversation with your subconscious. And sometimes, strangely, it goes outside your body and manifests in things around you. Or it's like a Rorschach test, and you're able to pick out those things that you need to know. Your subconscious, like, okay, this is what I want to tell you. So now you're going to find it in your life, and you're going to equate that, and you're going to get the message. So, I mean, I don't know, but it does happen.
Yeah,
just like reading cards, it happens on a smaller scale with reading the cards too.
Definitely. I think that's the tools that, if it's tarot or if it's painting or I think anything that kind of takes you into this process of not really only being ruled by the mind, when you can actually, like when you paint or you create something, I think everybody will agree that you kind of, you don't think, like you just do this. Like, I don't know how to put it into words, but it's not like a process, like, analytical process. It's a totally different, it comes from a different
once
place.
You can stop thinking, that's when you do the really good work.
Exactly. And sometimes when you cannot stop thinking, you fucking can't work, or you can't create anything because you constantly
I know that very well.
Yeah, same here. I was like, oh, you know, sometimes I do this crystal wands, and I'm like, I can't just go, okay, I need some money, so let's just create some wands now. It just never happens. I sit there and I try to put silly, you know, thread over the wood and crystal, and I'm like, it fucking doesn't feel right. Like, it just doesn't. No, I can't do it whenever. And but then when you're in the zone and you're actually in this creative process, like, it's a beautiful meditative exchange, and it's not even, it's so dynamic, but it's yet so peaceful. Like, it just puts you into this now, whatever that is. So it's beautiful. When, yeah, I also think when somebody paints, it's so amazing, because it takes probably, does it take you long to like, how long would it take you? Probably it's different, but like average somehow, like for one cut.
The actual painting usually went pretty quick. Once I figured out what I wanted to do, it was pretty fast, you know, couple days, really.
And they were oils, or like, was it
oil? Yeah.
Yeah.
Some of them were more detailed, so just the mechanical process of doing all the fine details would take longer, but yeah, not that long. But going through all the figuring out what I wanted to paint would take a month or two for each card or more.
So. Yeah. So,
but see, yeah, I think a lot of that's me getting in the way too. If I could just do that and let everything flow and get in the zone, it would go much faster. But
if we just could, all the time. Wave your magic wand, and no, but yeah, I think probably it wouldn't maybe feel so special or so recognizable if we could do it all the time. Like, I don't know, because then when you really do it, and also I think maybe it would be very hard to be in the physical reality, in a sense of like do the, like, you know, the dinners and all of, like, because when you're in this creative zone, like, yeah, you're in like a different plane a little bit. Or maybe, I don't know. You also love astrology, I think, right? Is that true? Because I'm not outside real. I don't even I haven't read it about you, but somebody asked that you apparently use sidereal astrology. Is it true?
I probably mentioned sometime that I'm interested in well, I don't know. I've had different ideas about it over the years. I'm not hugely interested. I'm more interested in the symbology of astrology than I am in the actual astrology, or like astronomy, you know, how things like, because real astrology, Western astrology, is not even based on where the stars are right now. So I probably said something like that.
Yeah, maybe that's why you would be for sidereal.
So real sky astrology, you know, would be more. But I tend to think a lot of it works. It's not necessarily where the stars were, but more like seasons and, you know, things that are actually going on the earth. Than, I mean, I don't know. I'm not.
I think astrology systems work well. Doesn't matter if it's sidereal or if it's Western.
Yeah.
Like, I practice Western astrology, and like, I just base it on my experience. Like, sometimes it, you know, blows my mind when I have total strangers, and based on the chart, you can access so many information. Just you know, just based on.
Well, what I mean is, I kind of see that. I see that numbers on a clock, but the time doesn't change. You know what I'm saying? So you can change, if you want to say Taurus is this or Taurus is that or whatever, it doesn't make the actual time change. So that's the way I see it.
Yeah, I actually see the value of sidereal astrology when you do predictive astrology more. That's why I think all the Indian astrologers and the Asian in general, I think they choose the sidereal astrology, because it's much maybe tuned in to what's happening right now. So I think it's quite, predictive astrology is amazing, but not only for predictive, it can get a lot of stuff. But definitely Western, from the mythological kind of archetypal point of view, works really well. And yeah, I just value all this. I love tarot, love astrology. It's just great systems, I think, if you don't get like slave to them. So yeah. And the one of the last questions is, why did you choose Levy's Hebrew Alphabet Associations? You still would stand for it, or now you wouldn't care at all?
I didn't try to pick anybody's association with that. I didn't choose like Levi or, the Golden Dawn or whatever. I just did what was natural, which is to put, the Hebrew alphabet is an alphabet and numbers. So Aleph equals 1, B is 2, or Bet is 2, and so on. So I just put them on the letter and number they go with. So just practical, it's just totally practical.
Makes sense. Yeah, no, I also, if I'm not using Golden Dawn associations. I usually try to use tarot like plainly, more archetypal or mythological, but if I was to use them, I would definitely do what you did, because it fucking makes sense. It's like, I don't have to do Aleph with 0, but it fits probably what Golden Dawn
if you
did
do it,
too.
you could set them up. You could see why it makes sense to do it that way, where they put 1 in the Fool, or Aleph in the Fool. Like the breath of life and all that. That makes total sense for the Fool. And I think some of the modern tarot iconography partakes in both of those, where people have associated it with the magician as 1, and people have associated the Fool as 1, and it kind of intermingled the symbols a little bit, so you can see them both in there.
Yeah.
But for me, I do it. Hebrew alphabet already has numbers in it, so that's where it goes.
And so. Is the Fool circumcised? I don't know what
he is. I didn't even think about that kind of thing when I did him. I drew a body. I wasn't really thinking about that, but I got more conscious of it later. And by the time I got to I think I should show you the King of Discs, which is what I would consider the last card in the deck, where if you see the Fool is the first, and then the King of Discs is the last. I do. Then where did he go? Then I would
maybe I find him. Oh no,
he is not circumcised.
Well, now we have to find it. King of Discs. I have him.
Yes. So you can see the Fool, and actually, if you look at them side by side, there they are. If you look at them side by side, they're very similar.
Yeah.
Like one is the beginning and one is the end. So one is like the, brand new soul setting out, and one is the finished one. Now, yes, he is uncircumcised, or he is circumcised and he is uncircumcised. It's almost backwards. But think of it like
gruesome skin at the end.
If and when I think of it like the Fool is missing something, or looking for something, or maybe incomplete. I guess you could look at it like that. Whereas the King of Discs is now complete. It's manifest, it's here, it has everything. So it has everything. It's foreskin.
It's got the skin.
Yeah, it's got the skin.
Cool. Okay, I think I've done all this long list of questions, which is lovely. And I close always the interviews with, you said that you use your deck often, and is there any special way that you use it that you could share? Maybe somebody could try it at home, or how do you use it?
I usually do just 3-card readings every day, because one just kind of leaves me wanting a little bit, and any more than that is like too much to handle every day. But I have several different ones I use. I did one for you. I'll send you a thing if you want to post it or whatever. Or I call it a here to there spread here. Right here. I don't know if you can see that.
Cool. If you could send me a link, I will link it in the description box for people to.
So and the first card is where you are, and the second card is where you want to go, and the third card is how do you get there. So pretty simple. One of the things I do almost every day is the first card would be what I'm doing right, and then the other card would be what I kind of need help with or work on, and then advice on how to improve. And so I work on that. And I always, that's pretty much it, just 3-card readings.
Yeah, but it's from what I see and hear, I mean, it's like inspirational, like it's more directed to inspire you for the action, like what you can do actually, not
definitely.
so much locking you into the meaning of the
I'm not
cards.
just trying to see, I'm not trying to just read the future or anything like that. I always have my intention is always to empower or have a way to find a solution or progress or improvement, or, you know, to work to act on things that are happening.
I think our connection got a little bit off. So I'm going to pause for now and see if I can reconnect with Marie. Oh, Marie, you back?
I'm back. Are you back?
Yeah, I was just going, oh, our connection got lost. Yes, but
yeah, it just froze. The screen froze. It's freezing again.
Yeah, exactly. So I think maybe that's a sign. Finish,
Okay.
girls, finish.
Yeah.
We've done everything. If you could send me the link for the little spread, I will link it below for you people to download it and try it out. And also, if you had any more questions, you can maybe write them in the comments of anything. Maybe Marie, if she ever has a time to watch it, maybe you can just
I'll do that.
See if there was anything which we didn't cover, but I think we've covered quite a lot. And thank you so much for agreeing and finding some time to do it with me.
Thank you.
And I will maybe speak to you another time when you, for example, finish that book, you know, and thank you so much, Marie.
All right.
Goodbye, and thanks everyone for watching. This was Marie White of Mary L. Tarot. Bye.
Bye.
Oops, wait a sec. Where do I